Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the European Crossover webinar. And today is NFP Day. Looking here to see what economic data that we had. Spanish's services PMI came out 45 minutes ago at 60.1, just a hair lower than the last time. Italian PMI came in 15 minutes ago, a little bit better than previous, but that's the composite. And then the services came in at 58.0, which was in line. French composite came in at 55.9, and German composite came in at 60, a little bit lower, with services at 60.8, which was also a tad bit lower than last month's. And Eurozone composite PMI came in at 58, which is also a little bit lower. We do have a UK PMI numbers out at the bottom of the hour, and Eurozone retail sales will be out at the top of the hour. Month over month, they're looking for a gain of 0.1%. And then the morning, a little bit later on, we do have in the U.S. session non-farm payroll. They're looking for 750,000. Last time they had 943. Don't forget, a stronger number is going to raise that concern for sooner tapering. Remember a month ago, it's coming. Everybody knew so much, or just about everybody was saying, the taper's coming. It's going to be right there in the right before Jackson Hole, or at Jackson Hole. No, it wasn't. But this would put the pressure on them at this next meeting to begin to talk about that. But it doesn't seem that they're going to do that anyway at that time. So could still be a little bit of a mixed bag, but obviously a much stronger number. ADP was a disappointment, but the ADP numbers have not been close to what true NFP numbers have been. So that's really the bigger concern. We aren't really necessarily looking at anything like average hourly earnings rate like we've had in the past years where there was concerns of inflation or whatever. They're not looking at that at all. But they're looking at 750K. Let's see. We do have Canadian labor productivity out at the same time. And then we do have which is a little bit unusual. We do get composite and services PMI out at 9:45 Eastern and at 10 a.m. Eastern. We get non-manufacturing activity. So got a lot of data this morning. So see where it all takes us. We're rebounding a little bit here. We dipped back yesterday. You can see here as I did post that where we had resistance at this 15,655. Of course, it did push above that very early in the session, but we weren't able to close above that. You can see here we posted the gravestone doji. That opened the door for us to eventually come down here. We did kind of dip, I think it's to 15,117 before we went right back up there almost all the way. Then we finally came lower and took this dip. We took a little bit further, but we've been working our way up a little bit here. But that'll be the key, because if we don't have a very strong number, and obviously I guess people are still concerned about the ADP. Obviously, if we get a lower number, then that puts the Fed, or the thinking is, puts him back. And then that would allow this market to try and make another run. But there's some concerns that I have is not only everything else has been going on. I saw in the overnight session, China's Caixin number, which is their version with the PMI, came in at 46.7. They were in July it was 54.9. So that's a huge contraction. So 46.7, remember anything below 50s is in contractionary mode. So but among other things that we're seeing is I just don't know if we can when something like that's going to count. And also the damage that we've had from Hurricane Ida, not only in the south, but it's gone all the way up into the upper East Coast, and big massive flooding that they had in Pennsylvania and New Jersey and New York. You have to figure that at some point, and then there's no electricity in certain parts of Louisiana, and where that may weigh. I don't have any positions on, so can't say I'm have a have a dog in the fight at this point. But I would still think that even if we do push up, I would think that they're going to have a hard time trying to get even beyond. But so far, it's held its own. But if you look at the daily, very questionable here. Of course, like I said, each NFP, they're always pushing it higher. So we'll have to see where it takes us. Maybe we come back lower after that. And then S&Ps, another new record yesterday there too. Taking a look at crude oil, we did go on and back down to just about, we were above the 69.55. You can see that there. And what they did was they came back in the US afternoon, came all the way back to come down here and essentially tag it. Actually seeing they came, right here. So they came down to 69.58 because the high on the Sunday session here was 69.64. So that even though they came here all the way to the US session, post to close, and I guess they tried to rally up, but they came all the way back down to tag this to fill that. 69.64 was the high on the Sunday session. They came as low as 69.58, and then they've worked a little bit higher since then. Taking a look at gold. We've been talking about that. Nothing's happened so far. And while I was thinking that was just, it's more of a fake out move. Maybe not a fake out move, it's just faked. Well, faked out the value bears who shorted this, but I just don't see this with any real moves. Maybe they will eventually, but to me, it doesn't make any difference unless they get above 1865. Taking a look where we are. Let's go into FX. Okay, so let's take a look at the euro. So obviously we come in weaker, that will open the door for the euro to continue to move even higher. So what would be the next challenge area? It's got to be right there, which would be 1934. Right there. 1934. We'll go with that. And And support right here. If it flipped the other direction, if we had a strong number, very strong number, and there's concerns that tapering going forward and the wheels start to come off on this thing, the pivot area would be right there, 1795. Here, come across. See that right there, 1795. Moving on to the cable. Finally made this push above that 3809. Although they're trading to be expected, very quiet. Obviously, if they make a push higher, and we get that stronger number, which it's kind of have like an opposite effect. Instead of the if we do get a weaker number, then it puts the Fed, as I mentioned, or the thinking would be, puts them at bay. With that, then equities move higher and the dollar would fade and potentially move all the way up to 38.78, which would be a little bit of a stretch here, but we traded pretty quiet. We finally broke above, so maybe they'll goose them up here. So it'll be 38.78. And support right there, that body, 37.34. Now, that'd be a pretty big fall, though. Holy smokes. Yeah, we'll go with 37.34. I mean, could be a volatile day if we saw a very strong number. We shall see. Aussie Dollar. Wow, they've made it up here to the weekly level. I know that Ryan had shared in the chat room that there were concerns that they may be hitting some stops. I didn't think they'd hit the stops yesterday, which they didn't, but I referenced this this key weekly level, which we followed way back when. You can see here, this actually goes all the way back here. But you can see here, even just to back here, and I think it's 2018. But you can see the 74.27. We finally, as of today, right now, we're now moving up. We're challenging it. We're just a hair above it, 74.31. A bit surprised it's already still up here. Kind of interesting. Ahead of NFP. But I did see a headline, I think it was early yesterday or the day before, that they were saying that they think they've got past the worst part of the COVID issues and things like that. So I was thinking, that might give the Aussie a bit of an extra boost here. And at the time, I mean, it was a little bit higher, but I didn't see any kind of a big jump. But that was the headline. So I guess maybe it's allowing them to push a little bit further. But this is still huge, this weekly level. So what we'll do is, you see right there, this lower body right there? Right there? That confluences with this wick here. So that would be it, 74.44. And support would be right there. If the wheel, well, that's a bit of an extreme. Let's go with this body here, which touches all these right there. That would be 73.60. Okay, let's go to the dollar yen. Boy, are we definitely not going anywhere on this. We're going to go with the wicks right here. That's 1030. And remember that 1022 was key. That allowed them to go back up there and challenge it. Keep it simple for now. 1057 would be a bit of a stretch, although if it came in real strong, they could get to that level. But for now, we'll just keep it simple, 1030. Support. Let's go right there, 957. Cash dollar index. Well, we talked about this. Remember, we had that bearish engulfing bar, and I said it had the potential to get down to 92.03. So if this came in much weaker, let's go and just stick with that. 91.87. We'll call it 91.86. I'm not sure how much further it could push down. Obviously, if the number comes in much weaker, it could put more pressure on it. But we'll keep it simple for right now. And obviously, if numbers were to be pushed to I would say an extreme, but on one side to another, then maybe we go and extend beyond that. Maybe 91.86 provides an additional area of support, but if the number came in in one direction, then we'd probably eventually lean past that and get beyond that. But for right now, I like the 91.86. On the upside, we'll stick with this 92.95. Stay there. Moving on to Bitcoin. Still holding up very well. We did have 51,348. Looks like they didn't get there, but they got to 55.30. We'll stick with this 51,348. Still surprised that we did go in, from the weekly's pivot, not pivot, but doji last week. We did come back down here and hold this 46,412. I just thought they would have probably still languished in here. But they're still pushing up against it. I still question whether we can take another leg up. Maybe we can. We'll see how that plays out. On the downside, same thing here. We'll stick with the 49,820. Well, now obviously it's lower than that. So let's take a look at the 2 hour. Right there. Kind of coming across all those touches. 48,297. Okay, and then moving on to the ES. Well, we did make it up there. Remember, we had the 45.45, 45.30. We had 45.45. We came back down. Well, they eventually actually came up to the 45.45. And here we are right there. The only thing we hang our hat on right here is this 161%, which is 45.50. And I'll just mark it as 45.52. And we'll see what happens. as I mentioned, as you keep going a little bit higher, there's just not a whole lot of analysis to do when you're saying, well, if it goes just a little bit higher, we do have this 161%. And we've been riding that trend line. That's 45.60. I'll still stick with this 45.52. 45.50 is at 161%, but I'm gonna stick with, let's just call it 45.53. Uh, 45.14 is key on the downside. We'll have to get there first, but we'll see how that plays out. Nasdaq, we had 15,700 previously before, and it came within a whisker of hitting that. I think the high's 15,797, I think it is, but we'll go back to the 15,700. I'm just questioning whether we can hold these kind of highs. Maybe they do, and we pair back at Labor Day. As just you can see here, we've got back to back to back dojis right here. Basically, kind of like small-legged dojis. This one actually was a gravestone doji right here, but like I said, it's really more of a money chasing money where it just keeps pushing it higher. But you have to wonder, with everything else that's going on, if they can sustain this type of move. They're not really, they're just kind of like spinning their wheels, but certainly would appear to be susceptible to a pullback. This is going to be let's see, yesterday. I guess I didn't even realize that yesterday when it came down here. 15,567. I was already out of my short, but that wasn't a bad area. No, we'll go with this 15,516. Once again, it depends on how the market wants to play post MFP. But there's going to be a lot of data. Take a look at gold. Gold, no changes. I already been saying this. I think they just faked out the bears, the value bears who came in. And we haven't done anything with it since. If they do, okay, well then, to me, once again, I've said it before, doesn't make any difference to me until they get above 1865. Anything in between here, in between there, is just meaningless. They can go back up there to, let's say, 1838 and just turn around and roll right back down the hill. So no changes here. Crude oil remains the same too, right here. We've talked about this 69.55, which I talked about since the prior weekend. And you can see the significance of 69.55 going all the way back to June. Look at that. So we challenged it on the Sunday open, and we just quickly slid back to that key 67.95, which was like a pivot. Then we rallied off of that, and then we meandered. And I hadn't done anything because I'm like, I don't want to do anything with this whole electricity thing and everything, Louisiana. or in the Gulf Coast, it may just, maybe they just say, whoa, there is a problem. And we jump up. Well, we dip back, but then also we did do that run out up in here. I don't know what the stupid OPEC meetings or whatever they came up with. Doesn't really matter in the long run. But anyway, it did give it a push, but all we did was come all the way back here to fill. It's not a gap, but to fill that area. And then they came back up, and here we are just meandering. So we did finally get above here, so we'd be looking at resistance, which would be there, 70.45. And on the downside, just coming across here. Right there. Call it 68.83. And there we go. And there's the bias chart ahead of NFP. And we'll see what kind of volatility we get. And thanks for joining us here on the European Crossover webinar. We'll see you in the chat room.